we were quite reliant on Pereira and Lingard for creativity this season with injuries. That's a problem with squad depth. And I think when he brought in Bruno Fernandes in January, he showed that he's addressing these problems. It's not going to happen in one transfer window or two, maybe three. The gap is so big to reach the quality and consistency of this Liverpool and City team that it might take 2 years, but you have to back him because, as I just said, he's addressed issues and he has to be trusted to address the other issues too.
Dale, one of the things we see with Ole is that he seems to have a plan, and one of the things I find absolutely hilarious is just how worked up rival supporters are about what Ole is or isn't doing. I couldn't care less what Klopp is doing. I don't lose any sleep about what Guardiola is doing. But the fact that they're constantly worried about what Ole has won, what he's not won, what his formations are, it tells you that clearly we're at a place where somewhere people are thinking to themselves, these guys are getting better. They're improving, like you said, on what we had before. And do you feel that he has a plan in place? And obviously he knows what he's doing, which is why not only are we seeing an improvement, but we're getting a little bit back to that old thing of people just disliking United because we're doing okay.
No, absolutely. Look, there's definitely threatening signs there. You see from even the arrival of Bruno Fernandes, Manchester United now have a star player in Premier League that will threaten teams. And it's been quite a while since we had one of those players. You talk about the likes of Cristiano Ronaldo and those kind of players that make a big difference, Van Persie and so. It's been a while since we had a player in the team that other teams would be watching and threatened by. And Fernandes has brought that. So this has all come with Solskjaer. And like I said, it's not going to happen quickly. And to be honest, I don't want it to happen quickly. I want him to have a steady ship of progression so that it's a long-term thing. As you mentioned, he clearly has a plan. There's been times this season where things haven't been going our way. And Solskjaer has stuck his guns to what he's always set out to do. The plan hasn't changed. And then you see how things kind of turned around this season. He's onto something. He's not a big name. He's not your Jose Mourinho's or your Louis Van Gaal's, but we've proven in the past that didn't work. And unless someone comes in with the ideology behind them of how this club works, I think we've got the right man right now. I really do.
And do you believe, like it's said all the time, that he's on the text to the guys over at VAR telling them to give us a penalty every game? Because apparently that's the only reason we get penalties. It's got nothing to do with the fact that we're in the box, we're attacking. I love how it's said that we get given penalties, like it's a gift, and other teams win penalties. The guy's fouled in the box. Penalty. What's he supposed to do? Not get fouled in the box or not get a penalty?
I think the whole thing around this is, you kind of mentioned that. You look at the two teams in the match, whatever team is in the box more than the other one is more prone to getting penalties. And that almost shows you the penalties we've got this season, how United's football is changing. Because there was a time under Mourinho where people complained that the players were hardly even passing the halfway line. Now all of a sudden we're getting penalties because we're getting into the opponent's box. I actually see the fact that rival fans are annoyed by this as a really positive thing. It's a really positive thing. And you're right to laugh about it.
No, actually, this is very true. And it's very ironic that Jose Mourinho, of all people, is complaining about this because his teams very rarely enter the opposition box as well. And he's been quite vocal about this as well.
Yeah, I think he had one really bad incident with Harry Kane. And you would swear by the way he's reacted that Spurs have been just terrorized with bad decisions all season. It's not the case. Mourinho is making a mountain out of a molehill.
No, that's a fact that I've quite enjoyed because even under Sir Alex, our success wasn't down to our football or wasn't down to Sir Alex. It was down to Howard Webb, apparently. And in the end,
miss him to this day. One of our best ever signings.
Yeah, it's never been down to our talent, apparently, but it's a good sign because our rivals are very happy in the past 6 years, and if our rivals are happy, it's never a good sign. And Dale, you've spoken about the gap between City and Liverpool as well. What do you think that we'll need to do to bridge that gap?
I don't think it's possible next season. I think like 30 points, you look at the difference between us and Liverpool as the Premier League ended. I think it's 30 points. But that's a massive, massive gap in the space of one summer to close that. Now, my aim will be next season to really close it down to 12 points, 7 points, and have a title challenge at least. And of course, you're looking at the Champions League as well. We're not just qualified for that and happy to take part. We should be going into Champions League, and especially this transfer market, to make a real stamp. There's no point qualifying if you're not going to do anything with it. Qualifying, get knocked out of the group stage is waste of time, absolute waste of time, and that's where my problems lie with this club at the moment, is because there's always a big panic at the end of the season to get top four. When they got top four in the past, they weren't able to stay in it because the club almost thought, oops, we're here now, we're happy. Financially, this is where we want to be. Whereas fans, that's not what I want, and that's not what Solskjaer wants. We want to be on the top of the Premier League table and winning the league. So I'm hoping they don't put their foot off the gas this summer and they back the manager, because this team is definitely going places, and if they pull the plug on, I'd be very, very disappointed.
Yes, but Dale, in the past, you've seen that when Van Gaal made top four, when Jose Mourinho made top four, our Spain was very low. And as you said, that as fans, we don't want that, but the club apparently seems to want that. However, in the past two windows, the Bruno Fernandes one and the summer one, do you think that there's been a change in philosophy finally, that the club is going to invest more and more in good signings, not marketable signings, but good signings like Harry Maguire, Wan-Bissaka, Daniel James? Do you think that there's been a shift in that sense?
I think there's definitely been a shift, that the signings that have come in have worked. That might show the board that the man that wants these players knows what he's talking about, because with previous managers, you've had the signings of Victor Lindelof and Eric Bailly. And the following summer, the manager brought them in. Jose Mourinho wanted another centre back, and the club were kind of asking, "Well, we've spent 60 million on two. They're not working out, so why should we back you?" The difference now is Solskjaer's signings have worked. United really have no excuse whatsoever not to go out and back him. I know it's a COVID-19 stricken market, and I'm sure we'll get onto the whole Jadon Sancho saga too. But the United have to look at the situation now that in 12 months' time, if they wait for Jadon Sancho, it will be 10 times more difficult to get him. This is their chance to get him now, and they can't be really budgeting around it or dancing around it. Go out and get the man Solskjaer wants.
Also, Dale, if you look at it, there's a bit of a similarity to the time when we went those 3 years when Arsenal and Chelsea were winning the leagues. Jose Mourinho coming in after, the Invincibles. And then United, everybody said, well, Sir Alex is finished. United is finished. They're not going to get. And some of the signings we were making at that time, you thought to yourself, who is Vidic? Now, I was reading that about Rio today, saying I hadn't even heard his name. And you thought to yourself, why are we bringing in Patrice Evra when we've got Mikhail Silvestre and Gabriel Heinze? We've got two amazing left backs. This guy's not going to get a game. And yet, in the longer term, those two turned out to be inspired signings. So do United also need to look at bargains like that, or look at players like that who can take time to settle in, maybe a year, maybe two, but know that in the long term, because we've also got a lot of dead wood that we need to get rid of. I'm not talking about Edward. I'm talking about the dead wood. We need to get rid of at least 8 or 9 players that don't fit into where we are. That should raise us some money. Clearly, like you said, it's now up to the board. If they spend on what Solskjaer needs, then they're backing him. But if they decide to have another window where the net spend is 50 million, then they clearly don't want any success.
Well, look, the other side of it too, that if they were spending 50 million net and the players coming in were good enough to win us a title, we wouldn't complain. But we've seen in recent years that hasn't worked. We've looked at the likes of Man City; they've bought all around them to get what they have. But you also look at Liverpool, and I think that's what United could be looking at too. And some of the signings Klopp has made to form this team, not the most expensive squad. You look at the big player comes in like Andrew Robertson, 8 million. What that tells me is that if you get a good scouting network, you will find those players that you mentioned. Who was Vidic, who was Evra. A good scouting network will find those gems, And I think lately you've seen in the news that United have signed 2 youngsters this summer, 2 fullbacks on either flank, one from Madrid and one from Barcelona. Both of these players were offered new deals by their clubs, and they've decided to come to United. That tells me Solskjaer it has an interest in the talent that's coming through, and is ensuring there's also almost a wheel and a circle of players coming through at all time, because it should be the manager's aim every season to bring in at least 2 young players from the academy into the first team. If you can bring that in every year, your team is ticking. It's a long-term ambition, but it's what United are trying to do.
Hi, Dale. Sorry, I joined late. Apparently, there was some issue with the timing, and we confused that. So glad to have you on the show. And since I'm butting in the middle of the discussion, I'll just go ahead with the questions. And what I wanted to discuss is I follow you on Twitter, so I see you. Because you follow Stretty News as well. Sorry, you are Stretty News. So. We recently saw this article, I think it was yesterday, about Raul Jimenez being linked to United, and he's a really proven Premier League striker. So why are these striker links appearing when we're already going in for Jadon Sancho? And for that, I think the fans are already, we already have Igalo. So where does Jimenez fit into that picture, and why are United going for him?
The reports have stemmed from Portugal, and from a credible outlet too, not a publication that you would link with kind of rumors or gossip. So they seem to come out with some substance, but nobody in England is reporting on it. None of the Manchester journalists are really reporting on it. We kind of looked at the report and suggested that hardly true, because the money in which Wolves would want for Jimenez, it would take up most of Manchester United's budget, which is already going to almost go on Jadon Sancho. So I don't think that one's going to happen. I think if United can get a young striker in for a good value, they will. But Jimenez, it seems like it's a lot of money to spend on someone that's going to be a backup striker.
And Dale, do you think that the other names that are linked to the club, for example, Declan Rice, you see Wilfred Ndidi, you see Bakary Soumaré from France, and there are a lot of young prospects that are being linked to us. So apart from Sancho, do you think that we're aggressively going to go for someone? You also have Jack Grealish case as well.
I don't think Manchester United will feel they need to aggressively go for anyone, because they're one of the clubs in the market that has the most money. If they want the player, they know they can match someone's transfer fee. I think that doesn't mean it's a bad thing. They don't have to go into this market aggressively. They are the biggest club in the world. You know, we can't forget that. When the second they show interest, ears are pricked. So they don't need to go aggressively, but they need to make some statements. You mentioned some names there, and I get from your views that you'd like a defensive midfielder. It's something Manchester United need to sign. I haven't got one at the top of my head. I'm not convinced by Declan Rice. I think a lot of people that watch Declan Rice will tell you that he's going to be a great centre back. But why isn't he playing there then? You know, why isn't he playing there now? Why would we sign a player to play defensive midfield, take up Matic's position, and spend, by the way, about 80 million is what they want from him? Again, that doesn't make sense. Totally an overrated player as well. He doesn't know what he is, and that's the problem with him. He's another Eric Dyer. United need to be sure in what they're getting. You see, for instance, went out and they got Bruno Fernandes, a type of midfielder they desperately lacked, an engine, a player that makes things happen. He's also good in possession as he's going forward. You know, a player like that, they needed it. Go out and sign one specifically to do that job. They weren't going to sign a player like Fellaini or expecting him to do a job that he's not comfortable in doing. So I say the same thing about a defensive midfielder. Go out and get a Thomas Partey, somebody we watch every week from a top team that's proven at this level he's good enough. Because, like I said, in the Champions League now, they need to be in it to win it, not just take part.
So, since we're talking about the central defensive midfield role, how do you think James Garner and Fred would play into that? Are they not the answers we're looking for, or do we need squad depth in that region? Because Garner would be another academy product being inculcated into the team.
Yeah, I think next season that Garner could go out on loan. It wouldn't surprise me if he went out for first team opportunities, maybe in the championship or somewhere of that level. I think it'd be really good for him too. He's still a very young player, and it's hard to make a definite judgment on him just yet because, as we've seen with players, some are late developers. Scott McTominay just burst onto the scene, and no one saw that coming. So I think the jury's still very much out on Garner, as it will be for a while. Fred's shown this season that he's massively improved and adapted his game in England. I think down the line he could be a very important squad player. I don't see him as a starter for Manchester United. I don't think he's good enough. If we're to get to that level we want to get to, because I know a lot of people would say, oh, he would probably one of our best performers this season. We finished third. And that will help explain that. He's a very good player. He's a player having the squad. But Manchester United need to be aiming higher. Need to be getting better players than Fred midfield.
There's been a lot of criticism for Harry Maguire. How do you think that his season has gone, and especially his leadership skills that were on display throughout this testing time of COVID-19 as well?
Look, up and down season for Harry Maguire, I'll be honest. Came in with a big fee. We needed a player like him. We needed a leader, and he came in and definitely brought that to the team. Prior to the pandemic, he had shown a level of performance week in, week out that I was really impressed with. I thought we actually had a really top defender. And then after the pandemic, he was worse than Lindelof. And we already know Lindelof is not good enough for Manchester United. Concentration lapses. He might be a leader. He might talk the talk, but he needs to start performing. And if he goes into next season and starts the campaign like he finished the one just gone, you're not going to challenge for a title. You're going to drop too many points earlier on. You have to sort your defence. You have to sort your goalkeeper. And also, I might be a little bit critical on Maguire. I think he has played well this season. But like I said, it's up and down. It probably doesn't help when your back four isn't convinced by the goalkeeper behind them. If you're not confident in your goalkeeper, that smells danger, big time. So Solskjaer, I know we're talking what players would like to be brought in. He does have a lot of work ahead of next season. We're happy with how it finished, but I see a lot of problems there that can catch United. So he's a lot of things to fix.
Dale, we also see that everyone's, raving obviously about the strike force. There's a lot of people worried about how does Jadon Sancho fit into what Greenwood is doing, what Rashford is doing, what Martial is doing. Ismail made a very good point that we have had injury concerns with Martial. We have had Rashford, have to almost carry the team for a year and a half, end up breaking him down. And we forget Mason's only 18. Can't play him every single day all the time. Sir Alex was like that with Ryan Giggs. He would give him some time off when he was young, even if he was the best, because otherwise you end up with a situation like Wayne Rooney, where a guy has played so much from 16 to 30 that by the time he's 31, his legs are heavy. And we saw it with Michael Owen. We saw the burnout. So for the people who are worried about someone like Sancho coming in, affecting the development, or another striker coming in, affecting the development of Greenwood, what do you say to that?
Well, for starters, if someone's worried about how Sancho's going to fit in at Manchester United, they have very little to be worried about. He's going to fit in like a glove. He's going to, as you mentioned, players can get burnt out. And I think if you look at the four players you mentioned, what Solskjaer's working with four pretty similar attackers. Okay, you've Greenwood, who's eventually going to go into a centre forward role. He's learning his trade now, getting game time on the right. Four of those players can all interchange. They can be an absolute disaster for a defence. And I think when I say interchange, you can also pluck one out of the team and put one in. There's a lot of games in a season, a lot of games, Champions League, Premier League. And if you're going to win a title, you need that. I was looking at some old games recently when Fergie was winning league titles, and on the bench you could have four strikers in a squad, 2 on the bench and 2 starting. You need that backup because goals win you games, and you see so many teams nowadays, and I think it's because so many teams set up with one striker. They could be drawn again near the end, and they only have one striker to bring off the bench. In those situations where you need goals, you need loads of options, and you can hit teams. I know someone said Gallo is here till January, but by bringing Sancho in, you have 5 goal scorers. You have 5 players that can get you goals, and I think that's a big step forward to what I was saying about bridging that gap.
Also, of course, we keep hearing that when Sancho's going to Liverpool or City, he's a really good player. But when he's coming to United, apparently he's an overrated pass merchant playing in a league full of farmers. Because apparently anybody who gets linked to United isn't good enough. The minute they get linked to Liverpool, and apparently he wants Liverpool, he's a Chelsea fan, he's ex-Man City. So all of these things also come into United. Just yourself, you work with the news, you realize it. United, anything to do with United sells. You just have to put Manchester United next to news about a tree with acorns on it, and people will go and read it because it's Manchester United.
No, absolutely. And look, it's same with Solskjaer. You look at Arteta when he first got the Arsenal job. People were saying he was the second coming of Guardiola without any managerial, experience really. Well, at that level. And it was an absolute disaster. And you have Solskjaer, who's at the finishing third, yet still some rival fans will hint at the fact that he's a PE teacher. You know, this guy has proven me wrong. Where's his credit? And meanwhile, Frank Lampard gets an easy pass too because he's Harry Redknapp's nephew. It's you're right. It's this whole thing about focus with United players, because if Sancho signed for Liverpool this summer, there'd be so many articles out there about how he's like this birth child of Klopp coming from Dortmund and ready to take over English football. Instead, he'd be coming to United and they'd be criticising how he's another Pogba and going to destroy the dressing room and dances too much and crap talk,
Absolutely.
So, Dale, you mentioned that United doesn't really need to be aggressive in the market, but we've seen Chelsea go and close out business with Werner and Ziyech, and they've almost reeled in Havertz. And then City have got Ferran Torres coming in and Nathan Ake already. So, aggressive in that sense that don't we need to finish or conclude our transfer business quickly so these lads have a proper training and pre-season with the team so they gel in well and we can have the squad ready to go in September?
You see, ideally, just by City going out or Chelsea going out and getting those signings in, it doesn't mean that they're being aggressive in the market. Like, for me, what Manchester United should be doing is planning months ahead. So that when the transfer window opens, they have deals in place. And that's not aggressive, that's just clever business. If in 2 weeks' time Manchester United haven't signed Sancho, I'm raising questions because they've known for months that they were going to go for him. They were pretty much basing it on the fact that they get into the Champions League. That's done. So what's holding the deal up? What is holding the deal up? I know it's probably you have Borussia Dortmund saying they want X amount, and the longer United kind of feel that they negotiate that, they might start lowering their fee. That's fair enough, but United are the one here buying the player, and maybe they need to be aggressive with Dortmund, but they're all around the approach shouldn't be aggressive. They're a big club. They should have a number of deals in the pipeline ready to go.
Okay, so Dale, we've spoken about Ole's achievements as United boss this season so far and tactically as well. But do you think that before, when he was being linked to us, then most of our fans said that he's a United legend, he did this, he did that, so we'll respect him more than we did Jose Mourinho or Louis van Gaal. But do you think the fans have lived up to that? Because the way I've seen it, it's been outright disgraceful at times. The SAR case in Norway that Ole was accused of, and that came out to be false as well. And there were many other instances where fans just spouted all kinds of bullshit. So do you think that the fans have treated him harshly? Or, now I see many of them praise Ole because he finished third, but where's the support during the season when he wasn't third?
Yeah, I think, to be honest, a few things there. You mentioned some of the criticism he's gotten on social media. And there's a few accounts out there which I question are either run by United fans or rival fans, and it's some crazy stuff. Like, look, what keeps me kind of sane when all this stuff happens, I ask myself, is there any United fan that I know that actually has these opinions? And there's not. Some of the stuff I see online, and I don't know any United fan that I actually speak to that has those opinions. So I just X off it and move on. And you can't really take those people's opinions seriously because, one, most of them haven't got their real name on their Twitter account. Two, they've got a picture of maybe Anthony Martial or something. They're hiding their identity. So yeah, I wouldn't give them, their opinions don't matter. As for the case in Norway, yeah, that was a big thing. We were told, like, you can't really speak about it because there was so many accusations and you don't want to end up getting ourselves in trouble. But I do think people have been pretty harsh on Solskjaer, but no harsher than they were on Alex Ferguson or Jose Mourinho when he was United manager, or even Van Gaal. This is what comes with managing Manchester United, and he would have been well aware of that. The pressures of being a player at this club, when you're expected to win title after title, which in his teams they were expected to do it. So he knows what the pressure is at this big club, and we're not worried about harsh criticism, because if he's worried about that, well, then he's not the right man for Manchester United. You have to take that on the chin. And I think the way he's worked this season has been just a real treasure to Manchester United, to be honest with you, because he's been dealt a lot. He mentioned injuries, so some criticism. There was a time this season where he almost lost his job, I feel, and he's bounced back and got us into third. So look, if people want to be negative about Solskjaer, this isn't really their moment to talk.
About Van Gaal and Mourinho as well. Why do you think that they failed, and Moyes as well?
Moyes failed because he was never going to succeed.
Thank you.
Jose Mourinho, I feel, was the man they should have brought in when Ferguson retired first. But saying that, I'm not suggesting that we'd be in any better position than we are in now, because it wouldn't have been a long-term thing with Mourinho. It never is. So Mourinho did a number of issues. Ed Woodward didn't really back him. I mentioned already about the 2 centre-backs he signed. He wanted to go out and sign a top centre-back the following year, and the club said no because previous buys didn't work out. But at that same time, Pep Guardiola went to City, made some signings in his first summer. It didn't work out, one of them being Bravo, and was back the following market to go and sign a top goalkeeper in Edison. That's the difference. That was a board at a club that were willing to back their manager. Mourinho wasn't back to the same level at all. And then he created some issues of his own, which we can't deny. The board weren't good to him, but he wasn't good to certain players. His behaviour at times, from what I've been told, wasn't good and quite embarrassing, really. And you see what the club has become since then, with a manager that's willing to put his arm around players. I much more prefer the atmosphere around the club now. Van Gaal, I think, great football manager. I'm not going to sit here and say he's an idiot, because he's not. You don't have the likes of Iniesta and other players come out and sing your praises. It was just the wrong time. It wasn't what Manchester United needed at that time of transition. And I think, again, the board didn't know where they were coming and going. And all these years, we wasted so much time not having a director of football, by the way. Because when you're chopping and changing managers, there's no direction. That's why I think Solskjaer deserves so much credit that he's almost changed the club around in a few months. None of those bigger managers were able to do that.
Dale, we talk about, like you mentioned rightly, Bravo. You look at Klopp, brings in Karius, big money, the next goalkeeper, he fails, boom, off he goes, in comes Alisson, he wants Van Dijk, they go for him. I think we were just reading today that Guardiola spent close to 600 million on just defenders at Manchester City, which means he's not been getting it right all the time. We were spending our fair share of money under Van Gaal. Moyes always claims he wasn't back. In a way, it could be true. He didn't get the kind of players he wanted, but I agree with you. He was never going to be successful because he was never good enough. Van Gaal ended up getting guys like Falcao and Di Maria, the kind of players you think that he never really managed to work with. He was not the kind of manager for flair players. And then, like you mentioned, Mourinho wanted Maguire. You didn't give it to him. He wanted other players. So when will we, and by we, I mean United, when will we start holding Ed Woodward responsible? If he claims he's not the man in charge of all of this, and he says it's not him, who is it then? If it's not him, and it's not Judge, and it's not the owners, then are we worse off than we thought? Because who exactly is responsible for this continued line, like you said, chopping and changing managers, chopping and changing players, no direction? It's the first time we seem to have a direction. It's the first time we seem to have an idea. But who is Ole going to and telling them, look, guys, I told you we needed Van Bissaka. I told you we needed Maguire. That worked. Now you got to back me. We need Sancho. Only to be told, we think Sancho's really expensive. Why don't we go for Jeff Hendrick? He's on a free. Things like this. Who's making those decisions?
Well, it's Ed Woodward who takes responsibility. He might not want to take all the responsibility. He actually hired a PR earlier this year just so people might speak a bit nicely of him. And just think about it. He wouldn't have hired a PR unless he had to. And that's why he did that. There's also just a story from, I think it was, could be wrong, 2018 maybe. Jose Mourinho was manager. It was the season after we signed Lindelof and Bali, and he wanted Rafael Varane. That summer during the pre-season tour, United played Real Madrid and Miami.
Yeah.
The transfer window was open about a month or so prior to that, and Mourinho had made several efforts to speak to Ed Woodward and include meetings and so on, and Woodward was always too busy. That was almost a month into a transfer window, and you remember the Sky Sports or someone got a clip before that game or after the game of Woodward walking by. That was Mourinho and Woodward's first interaction at that time. And that tells you straight away his incompetence, massive sense of incompetence. It's not good enough at a club at this level. He clearly is not the right man for the job. I'm sure the business side of things, he gets those things right. But yeah, don't be fooled by any PR you read. He's the one the Glazers have on a string that makes these decisions. And he's also the one the Glazers have no problem with. So we can hold him responsible. All the fans can. We're all pretty sure on that. But it's the Glazers who are happy with him. So it's not going to change.
Yeah, because he's bringing in the sponsorships. That's pretty much what they're in for, nothing else.
Absolutely.
So Dale, since the season's not over, we're still looking at the UEFA Europa League, and since its model has been revised and it's just a one-game fixture now, and with Leverkusen still in the competition, we've got Roma, we've got Sevilla, we've got Inter, so it's not going to be easy. And how do you see United going about their business in the Europa League? Do you think we're good enough to go ahead and win it?
Of course. We're in a Champions League. We're a Champions League team, and we should be using this as a pre-season tour. We should be using it and to end it on a high with the thought of going into the new Premier League season on the back of a bit of success to give the players that bit of belief. The first game back is the second leg against Lask. We're 5-0 up with that, with all goals being away goals. So that gives Solskjaer a chance to play the likes of Ethan Laird. I'd start him. A few young players and players who are fighting for a spot, and tell them, go out and perform, and you'll play the next game if you perform. Other than that, Bruno Fernandes, I go all top players. As you mentioned, it's a single game after this round for quarterfinals, semi-finals, and of course the final. So yeah, definitely go all out. We need a trophy. Solskjaer needs to win a trophy. If he doesn't win one in the Europa League this season, we then go into his second full season asking when is he going to win a trophy. And those questions, they can be difficult to shift. As you've seen with Pochettino, he literally had everything to become Man United manager. He didn't have trophies. He wasn't reckless enough. And I think that came back to shoot him in the foot, really.
And obviously with Luke Shaw's injury, we've seen Brandon Williams step up in recent weeks, but he hasn't had the best of forms. Overall, do you think that next season, considering this season we played Luke Shaw at LCB in a back three at times, do you think that we're also going to look for a left back, or do we need to, in your opinion?
We definitely need to. Although Luke Shaw's had a good season and we Brandon Williams emerging and showing great promise, I don't think left back were particularly strong. Could be improved, so I'd welcome a signing. It's probably not the top of my priorities because we desperately need additions elsewhere. But yeah, I don't think Luke Shaw, even on his best day, is quite world class. I think he's good. He's improving. More good games than bad games this season, I'd say, and that's a credit to him because in previous seasons you wouldn't be able to say that. Most weeks he'd annoy you, he'd frustrate you. Have seen improvements, but again, as I keep saying, if we want to make that step up, you can't have any passengers. And United, if they can get a top class left back in for cheap, by all means. But I don't think the transfer kitty is huge this summer by any means. I think the Sun have reported that's 140 million from Neil Custis, who's fairly credible. And I'd imagine it would be around that region.
Even this season, our net spend was 82 million. So considering that this season Ed Woodward also has a very valid excuse with the pandemic as well. Even though City, Chelsea, and other clubs are spending, Woodward is surely going to use that one as well.
Of course he is. But the problem is, and I have to say, it's getting to the stage now. It's been so long since Manchester United won a Premier League title that even if you use that as an excuse, it's not good enough. Because what about previous years before a pandemic when you didn't back the manager? You know, I don't think using that excuse would quite water with me at all, because in previous managers didn't back him. They really need to go out and make a statement this summer, because look, what more could Solskjaer do? Squad wasn't perfect start of the season. We got third place, Europa League final. You know, what more can he do? You have to go out and back the manager now. I even see with Liverpool already. The team of Werner, Klopp wanted him, Klopp didn't back him. I think there's one or two other players that he wanted and Klopp hasn't backed them. That's the start of a disaster. That's the start of a feud. That's when managers start leaving clubs. And I think Solskjaer's job hasn't even started yet. We have to back him.
Dale, I think you said it right. Solskjaer has done what he had to do. He's done what he was asked to do. Short of having a bad semi-final against Chelsea, which we'll all agree was just a one-off, was a bad day. He's reached a semi-final. He's in the knockout stages of another tournament. He's got you into the Champions League, got you finished third, got on a long unbeaten run, changed the atmosphere around the place. We're playing better. All of his signings this season have been successful. You wouldn't look at them and said, these guys. I was just looking at earlier games. Dan James, when he started the season, was phenomenal. He just came in, hit the ground running. Now, apparently, he wouldn't be good enough for a championship team. But people forget that guy was asked to run day and night, nonstop, constantly, in different games. So all of them, in one way or another, Ighalo has come in, whatever kind of game he's been asked to play, he's come in, he's gotten important goals. So now it really is up to the board, to the owners and Solskjaer. I wouldn't call and Woodward. I wouldn't call it a board. It's up to the owners and Woodward now to show: do they want to go for success, or do they want to continue just aiming to be another potential yo-yo club in the top four? All the owners.
I think that's the problem. They're happy if United are in top four. That's a massive problem, and I think they don't see the need to push it further if they can make their money by getting in top four. That's the sad reality. We can argue about this thing again next season. We can do this recording again next season, and we'll probably be talking the same thing again. That's why I'm not getting my hopes up. I'm not excited by getting too excited about the football Solskjaer's playing. And I'm not. Look, there's loads of promise. There's a load of promise. I'm not getting excited because I don't believe that this, as you mentioned, you can't call it a board. I don't believe in Woodward. I don't believe in Matt Judge. I don't believe in the Glazers, that they're the right people for the club. So I don't expect us to make the right steps. I haven't seen anything in the past few years to suggest that things will change.
Yeah, 7+ years now.
And it's the same old thing. So yeah, we're all happy about getting in third place. It's brilliant, but is it really? It's third place. You want to be first. And until I start seeing that, I'm going to raise questions with the board and stuff, because it's just not good enough. Expect better.
You've spoken like Keno there. Just imagine Keno celebrating third place. He was on the telly the other day, wasn't he? Also, and just absolutely livid that people are celebrating. But that was the standards of Manchester United. If you weren't first, if you were second, Keno said one of the most amazing things I've ever read anywhere, when he said that a one-match losing streak was a disaster. Losing one game and players would be fine. These players, you feel, would do that, but they know they wouldn't be backed. They know that the club is okay if you lose 7 games in the season, as long as you sneak into the top 4 and get that automatic money.
Yeah, I think there's one or two players at United still that probably get more upset at losing 5 Instagram followers than 3 points on some match days. But I think Solskjaer is ironing them out slowly.
Okay, and there's also a very interesting fact that a fan on the page wrote, Abdul Wahab Ahmed, We need to win Europa just to get in part 2 of the Champions League. Miss out on Europa, and we will end up in part 3 with the chance of drawing against a league winner and runner-up. So that also puts things into perspective that we need to win the Europa League. Otherwise, it's going to be a difficult group stage next season.
Yeah, well, look, the Champions League, I'm not worried about a difficult group stage. I want to play the best teams. I want to see our players challenged. I want big nights at Old Trafford with fans back in the stadium. But of course, our attitude going into Europa League should be to win it. That's like, you can't really overcomplicate it by looking at if we don't win it, we're drawing against these teams. Just go and win it. Tournament, trophy, go and win it. And put it on your CV, Solskjaer, because you need a trophy, and it might shut a few people up.
True.
Yeah, we need to get out there, get a trophy, and like you said, use this as something going towards next season. Treat it like a glorified preseason, but one that comes in, with the added advantage of the success. I remember when people said, "Why is Alex so happy about winning the League Cup with Rooney and Ronaldo? It's just the League Cup." That was the one that set you on to winning three championships and the double with the Champions League later, because those players got a success. Got an idea of what success is like.
Let's not forget either. People look back at Sir Alex Ferguson's first FA Cup, which supposedly kept him the job and had so much success afterwards. But it was the European Cup Winners' Cup against Barcelona, which was equally, if not more, significant. And I think it'd be a nice little twist in Solskjaer's story if his first significant trophy for Manchester United was a European one, and after qualifying to get back into the Champions League, it'd be a really nice ending to the season. Because look, it's nice to finish third. For about 3 days this week, I had butterflies in my belly and I was happy about it. But it's already gone out the window. I'm looking for the next one now. I'm looking for the trophy, and we can finish the season on that, and we have a big Europa League trophy to show for it. I'll be very happy. Very happy.
Dale, a little controversial discussion, but the FA Cup semi-final we lost, we know who was mostly to blame for that. We've got an issue with the back four, something that with the person behind the back four, something you've touched on already. So do you think Romero should have continued in the FA Cup? And what does Dave need to do to get the fans behind him again and get the team believing in him as a premier keeper again?
Yeah, I don't know what Solskjaer was doing starting to hit in the FA Cup, because it's been Romero's tournament pretty much up until that point. De Gea has been under a lot of pressure lately. Maybe he felt he had to kind of support him for some reason, but I don't think De Gea would have noticed anything if he kept Romero in the team anyway, because that's been usual practice. I think it was a needless thing to do. It backfired, and Romero has never let United down. Whenever he's been called upon, I do raise questions that because he's never let us down, why isn't he knocking on the door and asking questions before an FA Cup game? Why did it come to an FA Cup game before he asked a question about it? Because the Times said he wasn't too happy after the match. He should have been knocking on that door a long time ago. De Gea hasn't just started making mistakes. It's been a case since 2018, since he came back from the World Cup. It's 2 years of that. It's 2 years of Manchester United fans showing loyalty. And just to answer your question about what De Gea can do to get the fans back, I just need to worry about the fans. He needs to worry about himself, because the fans for the last 2 years have backed him. They're now asking questions because they're asking, is this going on too long now? And it is. How De Gea can fix that is start performing. Start being one of the best goalkeepers in the world again. Because if you're not, I'm running out of patience myself. It's becoming blind loyalty now. When your goalkeeper's making mistakes, you're going to drop points. It's just fact.
Yeah, our success over games. Sorry.
I wanted to, since we're on the topic, where does Dean Henderson come into all of this? Can we, replace him directly with De Gea, or do you think he still needs more experience in the Premier League before he can be the United number one, if he does go on to be the United number one?
Look, the thing about this, Dean Henderson's been one of the most outstanding goalkeepers in the Premier League this season, but not without making a few mistakes. Every goalkeeper is prone to a few mistakes, and I don't think that's a problem. I think it's a problem when you're making him throughout the season like De Gea has done. It's been another poor season for him. I think ideally you bring Henderson back next season. You let him compete with places for De Gea. Hopefully, you can spark a reaction from De Gea then. If not, throw Henderson in. And as for experience, De Gea had no Premier League experience at the age of 20, 21, and he was thrown into the deep end. He made mistakes, but he was allowed to do that. And I think Solskjaer is a good manager in that respect, because when you play young players and you play Brandon Williams, they make mistakes. Solskjaer accepts that. They're young players. That's how they learn. And I don't think people saying that, oh, it's a big step up from Sheffield United to Manchester United. Yeah, well done, Sherlock Holmes. Of course it is. It's the biggest club in the world he's stepping up to. But if he's going to be ready for it now, he's going to be ready for it. And if he's not, that's his chance gone. That's the price you pay at this level.
Yeah, it's not something that keeps coming back to you. You clearly sense that Hendo at some level feels he can do it. I mean, he was telling Louis van Gaal that he was ready for the first team at 18, so it's not confidence that he lacks. Maybe, people have rightly said Sheffield United being where they are is a massive achievement, and he's a very big part of that. So he might just be ready to come to United. And of course, if like you said, the defenders believe in him a little bit more, if they feel that he's performing to the best of his ability, then that works out for United as well. For us, when we're doing this show, it's very important for voices like yourself to come on, for young fans in Pakistan to, kind of understand, because for a lot of them, like Ismail mentioned, they follow the club in recent years. For those who are following this club in the last 7 years, I think they deserve a medal of their own, because it's not been very easy these last few years. Those of us like myself who've been around since the 90s, we've seen some really good times. And so every time, it goes bad, I put on a DVD of the 99 season or 2008, and I can think about the good times. But it's so important for us when people like you come on and talk about the fan experience. It's a way to educate all our young fans on the group. Pakistan's a young country, lots of people, many of them very, very young. So it's great for us to have you, and we'll say to you the same thing we say to all of our guests, that hopefully when things settle down, when hopefully this stupid pandemic is over, we can invite you over to Pakistan, come out here, watch games with us, and our food is way superior to India's. You don't even need to go there or worry about anything. It'll be like going to Dublin instead of going to Birmingham. It just makes more sense.
That's music to my ears. Bring it on.
Brilliant.
Bring it on.
Okay, that's great. Thanks for your time, and hope to have you here soon as well, as Hassan said. And hopefully we can reconnect soon as well and have another show, preferably on our youth system as well, because we didn't get a chance to speak about that.
Oh yeah, of course, absolutely. Whenever, guys, and thanks so much for having me. I really enjoyed that. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great one, Dale. Have a good one. Have a good weekend. Thank you.
Thanks, man. Bye-bye.
Good having you on the show. Bye-bye.
Thank you.